What if the next 7 days could completely shift your money, luck, and opportunities? Not by working harder, but by changing one simple habit. Stay with me, because what you do today can make success start chasing you. Success doesn't begin the day money arrives. It begins the day your energy changes. Every result you see in life, the opportunities you notice, the people you meet, the doors that open, responds to the energy you carry daily. Most people think luck is random, but luck often follows focus. When your mind is filled with doubt, you miss chances that are right in front of you. When your mind is filled with belief, you start seeing possibilities everywhere. Your energy is not something mysterious. It is created by your thoughts, your words, and the meaning you give to your experiences. If you wake up expecting problems, your brain searches for problems. If you wake up expecting growth, your brain searches for solutions. This is why two people can live in the same situation but experience completely different lives. One sees limitation, the other sees opportunity. For the next 7 days, the shift is simple but powerful. Decide that you are someone who attracts progress. Not someone who waits for perfect timing. Not someone who depends on luck, but someone who moves with intention. The moment that decision becomes real, your posture changes, your conversations change, and your attention changes. You begin to notice small chances that you once ignored. A message you would not send, you send. An idea you would doubt, you try. A risk you would avoid, you consider. Energy attracts evidence. When you act like nothing works, your brain collects proof that nothing works. When you act like things are improving, your brain collects proof of progress. This is not pretending everything is perfect. It is choosing the direction of your focus. Growth is rarely loud in the beginning. It starts quietly. A new habit, a clearer thought, a different reaction. Every morning, before the world tells you who you are, remind yourself who you are becoming. Speak it even if you don't fully feel it yet. Because feelings often follow repetition. When you consistently tell your mind that opportunities are coming, your mind becomes alert. You stop overlooking moments that could change your path. What once looked ordinary begins to look valuable. But energy alone is not enough. Energy must be supported by consistency. Many people feel motivated for a day, maybe two, and then return to old patterns. Motivation creates a spark, but consistency builds the fire. The power of 7 days is not in perfection. It is in repetition. Small actions repeated daily send a message to your mind, this is who I am now. Consistency removes the pressure to be extraordinary. You don't need one massive breakthrough. You need small proof every day that you are moving forward. One message sent, one idea written, one skill practiced, one fear faced. These actions may look insignificant, but they change your identity. And identity shapes results. Your brain trusts what you repeat. If you repeatedly delay, your brain learns that delay is normal. If you repeatedly act, your brain learns that action is normal. Confidence is not something you wait to feel. It is something you build through consistent evidence. Each small action becomes a vote for the person you are becoming. There will be days when you don't feel ready. This is where consistency becomes powerful. When you act without waiting for perfect emotion, you break the cycle that keeps most people stuck. You prove to yourself that progress is possible even on ordinary days. And that realization changes everything. Because once you understand that you can move without perfect motivation, you become unstoppable. Consistency also builds momentum. The first day feels small. The second day feels uncertain. But by the fourth or fifth day, something shifts. Your mind starts expecting action instead of resistance. What once felt difficult begins to feel natural. Momentum reduces the effort required to continue. This is why the 7-day commitment matters, not because 7 days is magical, but because it is long enough to interrupt old patterns. You are not chasing instant transformation. You are training your mind to trust your effort. When your mind trusts that you do what you say, self-belief grows. And self-belief changes the way you approach opportunities. You speak differently. You decide faster. You recover quicker from setbacks. The outside world responds to that shift. Some days your action will be small, and that is enough. Progress does not require intensity every day. It requires presence. Showing up even when results are not visible is what separates temporary excitement from real change. People often quit because they expect immediate proof. But the most important proof appears internally first: clarity, courage, and discipline. As the days pass, you begin to notice something surprising. Opportunities don't suddenly appear from nowhere. Instead, you become the person who recognizes and uses them. The same environment, the same resources, the same time, but a different response. That difference creates new outcomes. Your energy attracts direction. Your consistency builds momentum. Together, they reshape your path. Not overnight, not magically, but reliably. You stop asking, "Why isn't anything happening?" and start asking, "What is my next small move?" That question keeps you in motion, and motion creates possibility. By the end of 7 days, the biggest change may not be money or luck yet. The biggest change is that you trust yourself more. You know that you can decide and follow through. You know that your focus influences what you see. You know that small actions are not small when repeated. The words you speak every day are not just sounds. They become instructions for your mind. Most people underestimate how powerful their own voice is. They repeat worries, doubts, and fears without realizing they are training their brain to expect struggle. When you constantly say, "Nothing works," your mind begins filtering reality through that belief. It ignores possibilities and highlights obstacles. Over time, this becomes your normal. Changing this does not require complicated techniques. It begins with speaking intentionally. When you say what you want, even before you see it, you shift your focus from limitation to direction. Your mind needs direction more than motivation. Without direction, effort becomes scattered. With direction, even small effort becomes meaningful. Daily declarations are not about pretending problems don't exist. They are about deciding what you are building despite problems. When you speak progress out loud, you interrupt automatic negativity. You remind yourself that your story is still being written. Words shape attention, and attention shapes behavior. In the beginning, your declarations may feel uncomfortable. That is normal. Your mind is used to old language. But repetition creates familiarity, and familiarity creates belief. When you repeatedly say, "I notice opportunities," your brain begins scanning for opportunities. When you say, "I am improving daily," your mind searches for proof of improvement. This is how language quietly changes perception. The goal is not perfection in your words. The goal is consistency. Short, clear statements repeated daily create internal alignment. They act like anchors during uncertainty. When doubt appears, and it will, your practiced words guide you back to intention. Over time, your internal conversation becomes more supportive than critical. That shift alone changes how you approach challenges. Speaking what you want also influences how you interact with others. Your tone becomes more confident. Your ideas sound more certain. People respond differently when you communicate direction instead of hesitation. Opportunities often come through conversation, and conversation reflects belief. When you speak possibility, you signal readiness. Your words are most powerful when connected to action. Saying, "I take action daily," becomes meaningful when you follow it with one step, no matter how small. This creates integrity between language and behavior. Integrity builds trust with yourself, and self-trust is one of the strongest drivers of progress. Alongside intentional words, gratitude transforms perspective in a different but equally powerful way. Gratitude shifts your attention from what is missing to what is present. This does not reduce ambition. It stabilizes it. When you appreciate what exists, you reduce the anxiety that blocks creativity and action. Your mind becomes calmer, and calm minds make clearer decisions. Many people delay gratitude until success arrives. But gratitude is not a reward for results. It is a tool that improves the journey toward results. When you acknowledge small wins, a lesson learned, a step taken, a problem solved, you create emotional momentum. Progress begins to feel visible, even when outcomes are still developing. Gratitude also changes how you interpret setbacks. Instead of seeing them as proof of failure, you begin seeing information. You ask, "What did this teach me?" That question keeps you moving. It prevents the emotional shutdown that stops growth. A grateful perspective does not ignore difficulty, it extracts value from it. Your brain naturally focuses on threats and problems because it is designed for survival. Gratitude balances that tendency. It trains your mind to notice support, resources, and progress. The more you notice these, the more capable you feel. Capability increases action. Action creates new results. This cycle begins with awareness. Simple practices create powerful shifts. Taking a moment each day to acknowledge 3 things that went right can change your emotional baseline. They do not need to be dramatic. Consistency matters more than intensity. Over time, your mind expects positive recognition instead of constant criticism. This expectation improves resilience. Gratitude also affects relationships. When you appreciate people, you communicate value. Strong relationships open doors that effort alone sometimes cannot. Opportunities often travel through trust. Gratitude strengthens trust because it shifts focus from transaction to connection. People remember how you make them feel, and appreciation leaves a lasting impression. There is also a deeper effect. Gratitude reduces the fear of not having enough. When fear decreases, generosity increases with ideas, effort, and collaboration. Generosity expands networks and experiences. In many cases, what looks like luck is the result of consistent positive interaction over time. Before anything changes on the outside, it changes in the mind. The ability to see yourself already moving toward success is one of the most underestimated skills. Many people wait for proof before they believe. But visualization works in the opposite direction. You believe first, and belief changes how you act. When you clearly imagine the outcome you want, your brain begins treating it as a direction rather than a distant fantasy. Visualization is not daydreaming without effort. It is mental rehearsal. Athletes, performers, and leaders often picture themselves succeeding before the moment arrives. This process prepares the mind for action. When you repeatedly see yourself handling challenges, speaking confidently, completing tasks, and achieving milestones, unfamiliar situations begin to feel familiar. Familiarity reduces hesitation. Your brain does not perfectly distinguish between vividly imagined experiences and real ones. This means that when you consistently visualize progress, you build emotional readiness. You start responding as if improvement is possible rather than unlikely. That shift affects posture, tone, decisions, and persistence. What once felt intimidating begins to feel manageable. Clarity is essential. Instead of vaguely wishing for success, picture specific moments. See yourself waking up with purpose. See yourself finishing work you once delayed. See yourself having conversations that move your life forward. Notice the details, the environment, the emotions, the sense of completion. These details strengthen the connection between imagination and behavior. Visualization also helps during difficulty. When progress feels slow, your mental image reminds you why you started. It keeps your effort connected to meaning. Without that connection, discipline feels like pressure. With it, discipline feels like movement toward something valuable. The mind tolerates discomfort more easily when direction is clear. This practice does not eliminate setbacks. It changes how you interpret them. Instead of seeing obstacles as signs that the vision is unrealistic, you begin seeing them as part of the path you already accepted. Every meaningful outcome includes uncertainty. Visualization prepares you to expect effort rather than avoid it. That expectation builds resilience. But seeing the future version of yourself is only the beginning. The next step is becoming that version through daily behavior. Results do not chase intentions, they follow identity. When you shift your habits, you shift your identity. And when identity changes, outcomes gradually align. Becoming the person success follows means focusing less on chasing external validation and more on building internal standards. You ask different questions. Instead of, "Will this work?" you ask, "Does this move me forward?" Instead of waiting for motivation, you rely on structure. Instead of fearing mistakes, you treat them as feedback. These small mental shifts create consistent action. Identity is shaped by repetition. Each time you complete something you said you would do, you reinforce reliability. Each time you choose growth over comfort, you reinforce courage. These moments may seem minor individually, but collectively they form self-image. Over time, you stop trying to act confident and start recognizing that you are capable. When identity evolves, opportunities feel different. You no longer see them as rare chances you might lose. You see them as natural extensions of who you are becoming. This reduces pressure and increases performance. You approach situations with curiosity instead of fear. Curiosity opens doors that anxiety often closes. There is also a shift in responsibility. Instead of waiting for circumstances to improve before you act differently, you act differently within current circumstances. This creates influence. Influence is the ability to shape your experience even when you cannot control everything. People who develop influence appear lucky, but their advantage often comes from consistent preparation. Becoming the person success follows requires patience. Identity does not transform instantly. There will be moments when old habits resurface. The key is response. Instead of interpreting inconsistency as failure, you treat it as adjustment. You return to the behaviors that reflect your direction. Each return strengthens the new pattern. Your environment begins responding to this shift. Conversations change because your focus changes. You attract collaboration because your effort becomes visible. Trust builds because consistency signals reliability. These external responses reinforce internal belief, creating a cycle of growth. What once required force begins to feel natural. An important realization emerges during this process. Success is less about reaching a single destination and more about sustaining a way of operating. The person who continues learning, acting, and adapting does not depend on one opportunity. They create many. This reduces fear of missing out because progress becomes repeatable. Visualization keeps your direction clear. Identity-based habits keep your movement steady. Together, they close the gap between intention and reality. You stop hoping life changes and start recognizing that you are changing within life. That distinction creates empowerment. You feel involved rather than passive. As days pass, your confidence becomes quieter but stronger. It is no longer based on excitement alone. It is based on evidence, actions taken, challenges faced, lessons integrated. This form of confidence is stable because it does not disappear when results fluctuate. It is rooted in trust that you can continue. Eventually, you notice something subtle but powerful. You are no longer trying to force opportunities to appear. You are prepared when they do. Preparation changes timing. Moments that once felt overwhelming become manageable because your habits support you. You respond faster, decide clearer, and recover quicker. Readiness often looks like luck from the outside. The transformation is gradual but undeniable. You think differently about time, effort, and possibility. You measure progress by consistency rather than comparison. You focus on alignment rather than urgency. These shifts create sustainability. Growth becomes part of your lifestyle instead of a temporary push. Waiting for the perfect moment is one of the most common ways people delay their own progress. The mind tells convincing stories. You need more confidence, more time, more clarity. But action does not require perfect conditions. In fact, action is what creates clarity. Each time you take one bold step, you replace uncertainty with experience. Experience reduces fear, and reduced fear makes the next step easier. A bold action does not always mean a dramatic move. It means doing something you would normally avoid. Sending the message you keep rewriting. Sharing the idea you keep doubting. Learning the skill you keep postponing. These small moments of courage accumulate. They quietly reshape your identity from someone who hesitates to someone who initiates. Every day presents at least one opportunity to move slightly outside your comfort zone. The opportunity may look ordinary, starting a conversation, asking a question, trying a different approach. But these moments carry power because they interrupt routine. Routine keeps life predictable. Growth requires a degree of discomfort. When you choose action despite discomfort, you send your mind a clear signal. Avoidance is no longer the default. Taking one bold action daily builds evidence that you can handle uncertainty. This evidence becomes confidence. Confidence is often misunderstood as a feeling that appears before action. In reality, confidence is the memory of actions you survived and learned from. Each bold step becomes proof that risk does not automatically lead to failure. Sometimes it leads to opportunity, sometimes to feedback, but always to growth. There will be days when your action feels small compared to your goals. That does not reduce its value. Large outcomes are built from repeated small decisions. Momentum forms when action becomes a daily expectation rather than an occasional effort. You stop negotiating with yourself. You act first and adjust later. This shift reduces overthinking, which is one of the biggest barriers to progress. Action also changes how you perceive opportunities. When you are inactive, opportunities feel distant and intimidating. When you are active, opportunities feel like natural next steps. You become engaged in the process instead of observing from the outside. Engagement increases awareness, and awareness reveals possibilities that once seemed invisible. But taking bold action requires protecting your mental environment. Negative inputs shape perception more than most people realize. Constant exposure to doubt, comparison, and discouraging information trains your brain to expect limitation. Even subtle negativity accumulates. It influences how you interpret events, how quickly you give up, and how risky you believe action to be. Removing negative inputs does not mean ignoring reality. It means being selective about what repeatedly occupies your attention. If you constantly consume content that emphasizes failure, your mind begins preparing for failure. If your environment is filled with voices that question your effort, hesitation increases. Your brain prioritizes safety, and safety often means staying the same. Creating a supportive environment is a powerful form of self-discipline. It involves reducing noise that drains energy and increasing inputs that encourage movement. This could mean limiting time spent comparing yourself to others, stepping away from conversations that reinforce doubt, or choosing information that teaches rather than discourages. These choices protect momentum. Your mind absorbs patterns. The more often you hear that something is difficult or unlikely, the more believable that narrative becomes. Without realizing it, you begin lowering expectations and effort. Removing negative repetition interrupts that process. It creates space for new narratives, ones based on possibility, learning, and persistence. This does not require isolation from all criticism. Constructive feedback is valuable. The difference lies in intention. Feedback that helps you improve strengthens action. Negativity that questions your ability without offering direction weakens action. Learning to distinguish between the two protects both confidence and growth. When negative inputs decrease, your emotional energy increases. Decisions become clearer because they are not clouded by constant doubt. You recover faster from setbacks because your environment does not amplify them. Instead of one mistake feeling like proof that nothing works, it becomes one data point in a larger